I bet you didn't know that. I bet you didn't know that.
We got special guests.
Yeah, we got guests today here on top of that matter.
Oh,
Yeah, I bet you didn't know that.
Wow. Bishop Powell's son and his daughter.
Son pull a seat over here. Yeah.
Stay surprised. Surprise the old man.
Let me see it. Yeah.
Today is Bishop Powell's birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, you get black.
Yeah, this is his birthday today, y'all. And so his children have slipped in on him.
Yeah. Listen, he had to look twice, you know. His sight ain't what it used to be, you know.
So y'all knew he was coming?
Who is that?
Yeah, you get old, you can't even like eyes he can't even see.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Who is that?
wow.
What is that about?
Wow.
Got you.
Yeah, we said, okay, you know, baby girl done slipped in here, but you didn't know this, did you?
No.
God bless you.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, now.
Fucking, you knew your brother was coming down here? Oh, Lord. Did y'all get Pastor Heard in the secret too?
Yeah, he received it.
Everybody knew.
Oh, listen, this is like the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Everybody knows. They don't do something one, but only one. Oh,
That's so crazy.
Yeah, we was
So when did you decide this?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
So I guess we'll start the show with Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Listen,
birthday.
audience, it's Bishop Victor L. Powell's birthday, so we're going to start the show off singing Happy Birthday.
Yeah.
Happy
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Bishop Powell. Powell.
Happy birthday
To you. Okay, Stevie Wonder style. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Okay, the hip hop version. It's your birthday. It's your birthday. It's your birthday. Gonna make me feel old.
His son and daughter done slipped in all them. Yeah, man.
Now listen, let me ask you, because now you all are doing a work in Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
Bishop's daughter and son
Yes, sir.
are doing a work. And what's the name of your work in Atlanta?
Rhema Church of Atlanta.
You got to talk to that mic there, Bishop.
The Rhema Church of Atlanta.
Rhema Church
Rhema
of
Church,
Atlanta.
yes, sir.
Oh, so Rhema with Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
And where y'all now?
We were in Roswell, Georgia.
Okay.
But literally 3-4 weeks ago, we relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. So we're like 30 minutes from everything.
So when people from Albany or in Atlanta need a place to worship on Sunday,
Yes, sir. 4209
4209.
Northeast Expressway, Doraville or Atlanta, Georgia.
And I'm his Facebook friend. I'm not Victoria's Facebook friend, but I'm his Facebook. So if you go to Atlanta and you're looking for somewhere to worship, just hit him up on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm right
Look
there.
at his Facebook and
Yes, sir.
hear some of his messages so you can. Somebody help me preach this. Oh, the more he tried not to be like the daddy, the more he. I was listening to him. I said, "Oh Jesus, I wonder do he know he sound that much like his dad?" I think he tried hard, like the rest of us, not to. But the more he tried not to sound like him, the more I say, "Boy, that's Bishop." Oh boy. Amen.
Wow. What is your Facebook page? 'Cause I see a lot of videos of your worship and those
Yes, sir.
kind of things. So
Just go to my page, Gabriel A. Powell, or you can just type in the Rhema Church of Atlanta, RHEMA, Rhema Church of Atlanta. You can find us on
yeah,
there.
because I even heard the young woman of God preaching. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir. She killed.
I heard some of that shit.
Yes. I ain't gonna tell y'all what she went in Albany, but she told him something, you know. You know that y'all know who I'm talking about. God bless y'all. Wow, man. Can we ask?
What a pleasant surprise! Now this is a surprise because we were just eating, and I asked Victoria. She stepped out. I said, "So how did Gabriel say the service?" Well, you know, Right. How did the church service go? How did everything? He said, she said it went okay. Now she literally did not tell. She kept saying, but what a pleasant surprise. What a pleasant surprise. I made 58 today. Today is my 58th birthday. And,
so that's 2 from 60.
2 from 60. Yes.
12 from
70.
Yes. And 22 from 8.
Yes, Miss Carter. Listen, Miss Carter, we're gonna let him talk. We're gonna let him talk about that today. You know, but you know, it ain't me, it's him. You know.
Wow. It feels good. It feels good. And what today? Victoria surprised me this morning. Didn't know she was coming, and then she came down and then gave. So it was real good today. So it's good. Very pleasant.
How was worship today?
Powerful. Really good. Really good.
Wow.
You proclaimed today?
Yeah, I did. I ministered today.
And what Gilman?
I talked about Rehoboth. God's about to make room for you.
Oh my!
I don't even think I've ever even preached from that particular text. Rehoboth. God's about to make room. He's going to make room for us. Yeah. Isaac, 26th chapter of Genesis. And that he does want to make room for us.
Wow. Now, Bishop Steve, you were in Atlanta when you were in Atlanta today, right?
Yeah, I was in Atlanta today, and I was at the St. Joseph Hospital. Pastor William Smith is back in the hospital, and we were visiting him, and so yeah, we literally just came off the highway straight to the station, and you know.
And for those of us who know Pastor William Smith, who was the pastor of Israel for many years,
yes.
How's he doing?
He's doing great. I mean, his spirits are there. I think they said he got up today and did a little walking and therapy, so we were excited about that, and so he should go home in a couple of days and just have a beautiful wife who's taking care of him and remind me of my wife.
Oh,
I'm serious. I mean,
because you went through your sickness. And
yes. So
make the medicine taste better.
and that's a blessing. Yeah. That's a blessing. Yeah. if I could hoop somebody would help me, I would preach this right now.
Well, I guess we better give our shout out across.
Now, what about you? Yeah. Tell us about your service today. Because I know you preached 5 times today.
No,
tell us about all the
I
5 services.
None of them
all the 5 services.
No, I'm just doing 2 now, and God was kind. I'm dealing with this issue about working what works.
Wow.
John 6, 28, 29, when Jesus and the crowd had eaten from the fish and the loaves, falling to the other side, and he tells them about their, he tells them don't labor for stuff that doesn't last, and so they ask him, what shall we do that we might work the works of God? And then Jesus tells them in verse 29, 6:29 of John, this is the work of God, that you believe on him whom he has sent. And talking about working on believing, one that God sent, who is Jesus Christ, and specifically today working on our hope in him. And dealt with Abraham, who in chapter 12 of Genesis gets a promise, but by the time it finally comes through, the numbers of switches, chapter 21, and how do you keep hoping? Jesus. And Romans says he hoped against hope. Jesus. But there was no reason to hope. Yes. Kept hoping, and that's sort of what we wrestle with.
That text has a deeper meaning as you age.
Yes, it does.
It really does. Yes, as you age and walk with God, it has a lot.
I don't know yet.
All right.
I'll take your word.
He'll take my word for it.
Hey, God don't make you younger.
But listen, we have another preacher in the house. Let's hear what
Pastor Gabriel, what you talk with him.
I'm doing this series on giving, tithing.
Okay.
And today I came from Genesis 4. And it's a story about Cain and Abel.
Okay.
And I talked about how a lot of times we preach that text we interpret it from a jealousy, murder perspective, but when I looked at it, it's not about jealousy, murder. That was the manifestation, but it's really about tithing. A lot of people think that the first tithe was between Abram and Melchizedek. That was the first tithe to man, but the first tithe to God was Abel's giving his firstborn, Cain giving of the fruit from the ground. And I looked at how God told Cain to go to Nod as punishment. And so I was sitting there looking at the text and I was like, Lord, what does this mean? You just sent him to Nod. Now he just killed his brother. And the only thing he gets is he doesn't die, you don't punish him, but the Lord said, look at it again. And so I went and looked at Nod, the definition of Nod, and it means the place of unrest. And then I looked at what Eden meant. This is where God sent him from, Eden. And Eden means atmosphere. In that word, atmosphere, spot, open doors, presence, and delight, and moments. So spot, moments, open doors, presence, and delight. Wow. So God's punishment to Cain for not giving the best of what he had was, I'm going to send you to a place of unrest, and I'm going to send you to a place of unrest from a place where I can do anything at any given moment, that I can bless you if you're in the right spot. My presence is going to always be with you. You're going to always have an open door, and you'll always delight yourself in me. So his punishment, though nobody could kill him, he was going to always wonder how God was going to bless, how God was going to make a way. But when you're in Eden, you're always in the right spot. There's always an open door. The presence of the Lord is always with you. You always delight yourself in me.
You hear me?
That sounds like Pastor Heard. When you said you look at the text again. Look at
the
text again. First thing I was thinking about Pastor Heard.
You got to hurt yourself.
When I see this text, so wow, man, what an incredible word.
That's powerful. Yeah.
So you give us hope, you give us confidence, you help us to move into the Father's realm when we find that their sons can be trusted with the Word of God. Right. Because so many are not, preaching that, these days and so forth. So that's a blessed word. I'll bless just sitting here by the word. Hey, don't we have a few things to say, and then we're gonna get back and we're gonna interview we're gonna interview the people who really know him about him. What about early voting starts?
Early voting starts Monday.
Wow.
Monday, the males race.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the 3 days of early voting. So tomorrow starts tomorrow.
Yes.
Those who are in the show on Monday is Monday. It will have started Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the final day of voting is December 3rd. And so
we gotta vote.
We gotta vote. We gotta be committed. And I say to people, the only time I don't want you to see my hand is when I'm playing spades or bid with. Other spades and bid with, I don't mind you seeing my hand. And a part of it has to have with leadership, because so often we make everybody think I'm with you. We make everybody believe I'm for you. I was in a meeting last week, and the question was about how do we get people who are in the race, who claim to be in the race because they care for our community, they love our community, but they didn't win. They didn't get in the runoff. How do we get those people to support the current mayor? Because I'm gonna run a race that I'm in there for the African American community. I'm in there for the people who are part of the underside.
Yes.
And I'm wondering to see, are any of those people going to get involved and say to her, I got my own feelings about will they do it? I hope they will. Because right now we are 70-some% of the community, but we only have, if she gets in, we'll only have 30% of the influence on the city commission, which means that 30% of the people got 71% of the voice. And if she loses, they'll have 80-some% because they'll have what you call a majority pack. They already got a majority. There's already four whites on the commission. They'll have a super PAC. And for me, in
Tiebreakers and
2019.
all this other stuff. Well,
And
no,
so-
they already have.
But they already got a majority.
Yes.
Yes.
But they'll have a super PAC, which means that even if one of them has conviction and realize, that's not fair
Right.
to the whole
Still
community,
got another
they
person.
got another person.
Yeah, but
And so I am wondering, are these others going to, if they care so much about our community?
yes.
And so I am told that one person was asked about supporting, but he said, well, you support her, and maybe we consider you down the road, maybe for the next election. But the person didn't trust black preachers and didn't trust the current man.
Wow.
I'm always uneasy about trusting people who can't trust me,
Right.
but want me to trust them. And but we're gonna see. We're gonna see how they play the cards. But I do want to say to our people that if you love Albany State, if you want the better for Albany State, Dr. Hubbard is the person, because she's always supported Albany State. When Bo was a commissioner, had a chance to support Albany State, he said they don't need nothing. That was his word. They don't need nothing.
Right.
And I think we got to be careful of anybody, because Albany State has been a beautiful baby now. And I'm gonna give it back to you. There was a debate, and at the debate recently, he was asked why didn't he support it. And if you didn't support Albany State when you were commissioner, how can we trust you to support Albany State now? And he got offended. He got very offended. He got very belligerent. But in the end, he said, well, he didn't support Albany State because Thornatiska needed the money.
What?
And so he decided to
Yes, I
support
remember that.
Thornatiska.
Above Albany State University.
Thornatiska doesn't bring any money to Albany State.
Right.
To Albany, Georgia.
Jobs.
Albany State brings millions of dollars.
Yes.
So if that's the shallow thinking you got, that you'd rather give the money to Thornatiska, and when you start asking black people in Albany and the surrounding areas, how many have benefited, how many have grown, how many have been empowered by Thornatiska, it's probably 1%, 2%, 3%. But if you ask how many have been impacted by Albany State University, it's 99, if not 103%. And so if he would rather pick Thornatiska, let him pick Thornatiska from his law practice.
Absolutely.
Right.
The answer really was an insult.
It was
It's
innocent.
an insult because when you can compare the only university, basically,
Absolutely.
historical black college in our region, Albany, Georgia, is the hub of Southwest Georgia, the hub. So for you to compare apples, we're talking about this is a watermelon to a lemon.
No, to a plastic fruit.
Absolutely. There's there's no comparison. So that comparison was an insult. However, my concern is that will African Americans let slave master insult us
Right.
Yes.
and give us that analogy
Right.
and make sense of that analogy?
Right.
But Thornatiska does not hire hundreds of
Hello.
people.
And thousands of
students.
A year.
Right.
Thousands.
So that analogy is an insult. This morning, I made it very clear. I'm voting for Dorothy Hubbard. That's my endorsement. The question is, and the reason I said that, and I know that there are many who said, African American, they'll say pastors don't supposed to endorse, blah 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 blah. However, I indicated to my congregation who I was voting for. Number one, two. In the African American community, we have to take the time to inform our constituents, our
Right.
congregations, the people we influence. We have to read for our people, basically. Not that they can't read.
Right.
We have to say to them, these are the things that we know for a fact that the candidate has done, will continue to do. The other thing is that once the candidate has been reelected, then I want to encourage the 45% of people that will return back to the poll to get her elected, to challenge her if there was a need or the area that you want her to be more accountable in. Not only Dorothy Hubbard, not only our mayor, but any candidate you put in office, we need to hear from the people we serve while they're serving.
Right.
And then the propaganda, this is the trick of America is what we do with our candidates. We're abused and used by both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans.
Right.
In many cases, you only come to our churches when it's election time.
And you want religion and politics mixed so long as we pick you. And when you're not our choice, then you want the black preacher to be silent.
Then you go to law. Go to the law.
Yeah.
And church and state don't mean.
But you want to go to all the churches.
And you want to meet with us privately. You want to
sit in our worship at one time a year.
One time a year. And then you want us to make sure that we tell everybody, oh, it's good to have candidate blah 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 present. So I really want to encourage. We got early voting starting tomorrow, Monday. And if you hit us on Monday, it's today.
So that's the 25th. Starts on 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Yeah, but let me say, so he says that now, but he didn't say that. Then he just said they didn't need the money.
They don't need
That's
nothing. No, they don't need
They
nothing.
don't need nothing. He didn't say. I picked. I thought that needed more.
Right.
Needed was more. Their need was more desperate than almost. He did not say that. He said they don't need nothing. That's just. And this is the thing I'm looking. Two things that. How did they get the majority? How did they get to be this act, this full majority? How did that happen? And
because black people derailed us.
Yes.
And we lost a seat.
Right. So we lost a seat because
they split
the vote just like it's split now.
Yes.
And my whole point, I was riding down the road. I didn't say this to my wife and them, but I had a thought. You know what I believe in my heart? I might be wrong. That if Dorothy Hubbard had lost, that she would have put her influence behind
one of those before
she let that happen. She might not agree with everything about them. They might, but I just believe that. I believe she's that kind of woman. So when you hear, I'm bitter, or I got all the plans for all the, well, share some of them with somebody. But the only way it works is that if I'm in charge. But so we're gonna split the same split. Is going on, and then they counted on us not going back to the poll for the runoff. And so we ought to surprise them, and especially people who are affiliated with Albany State in any way. Love Albany State, had children that go to Albany State, alumni of Albany State, you at Albany State, you work at Albany State, whatever, you in Albany.
Your child couldn't go anywhere. When black people couldn't go anywhere else, Albany State doors became open for us. When University of Georgia went open for us, when Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, when all of those schools were closed us, and we still love them. We still support the Bulldogs and the University of Alabama and all the rest. But when all of those schools were closed to African American people, Albany State and the lights were open and have always helped our people to get to a better place. And so for Bo to take the position that they don't need nothing, he hadn't been to Albany State, he hadn't gone anything, he has never supported. And so I'm saying to people who love Albany State, that ought to be enough to say we don't need him in office. If he, listen, and at that time when he turned it down, the governor of Georgia, Roy Barnes, was trying to work to get money to Albany State. Lawrence Roberts, a state representative, was trying to get money. Winfred Dukes, representative, was trying to get money to Albany State. Listen, so a white governor was for it, and here is a local, broke, politician attorney who got the nerve, who got in because of black people, and there were black people like me, because Gilbert brought him to me, said he's a good man. Henry Mathis brought him to me, said he's a good man. I didn't go with him because of Henry, but I went with him because of Gilbert Udoto. And the only thing I asked him to do, support Albany State. That's because if we were the University of Georgia, you'd give them whatever they need or whatever they want.
And the one thing he wouldn't do. The Donatissa answer, Pastor, was a present answer.
That was right. He didn't say that back then.
When did he say that now? When he said that when?
Last week.
Last week.
That's the lie told.
The Donatissa answer was a recent answer. I need the hearers to hear this. That answer is not 15 years ago. That is a present answer.
And the governor of Georgia, Roy Barnes, was trying to get us money. And here's a local politician in a majority black district, in a majority black city, talking about they don't need nothing. And then I was told that a white lady at the meeting the other day says, so what's the problem? What the problem is, we want to say no to Bo. That's the problem. He told Albany State no, and people who like me who love Albany State, people like me who mothers worked at Albany State, people like me who went to Albany State, people like me who graduated Albany State, people like me who got friends who went to Albany State, people like me that love bleed blue and gold,
Listen, we ought to go to the
I
polls,
feel it
and
coming.
we ought to get him in a way where he don't ever run again.
And also that
feel it
position,
coming? Go Rams!
that position tells us how he feels about a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Hello.
See, this is what we need to get the understanding
You're on a
of. That
Democratic
position, the
band,
Albany State
taking the
piece,
phone.
is what helps us to understand this is how he feels about African American issues.
Say no.
Say no.
No.
To go.
Oh, say no. Say
No.
To
But we have 2 Rams in here. I mean, they might not take our words.
So they were they're Rams?
Because,
Yes.
because we
Oh,
say
y'all
that.
young
Because we got,
She went to
and
and mama.
Listen, so
I
what
went by
how do
there.
you think?
No.
I'm sorry. Listen, you're not supposed to ask that lady that. I'm
you don't
sorry.
ask a lady that. Right.
One thing we know, you're not nearly as old as your dad. What would you say to young people, honestly, about voting? What would you say to young people about getting engaged? What would you say to young people who even questioning why would I vote for him? Especially if you are at Albany State University Golden Ram. What would you say?
Absolutely. So I would really, really encourage students to get involved because this is our future. When you vote, you say, I have a voice. I'm getting involved with what my community will look like, not just a year from now, but 4 or 5 years from now. You're basically taking control back. It's a systematic, generational system that's in place to hold us down, to take our voice back. And so when you vote, you get out and you do your research. It's important that you get involved with local politics. I would tell young people to step outside of your own world of music, Facebook, and start getting involved with CNN, read, research, know what's going on around you, and make a mark. Go out, tell your friends to vote so that we can put our footprint in society, because right now we're not collaborated enough to make a difference in our society. And so it's important that we get out and take our communities back. So start now with your local community. Say that Albany State does matter. We are a force to be reckoned with, and our school will leave a legacy in Albany, Georgia, that you will not force us out. So when you get out and vote, you're saying to people, you're saying to the system that's in place to hold you down, that we will not be forced out. We do matter, and we will vote, because that's what they expect. They expect for us to be silent. They expect for us not to read. They expect for us not to get involved. They expect for us to never do our research to know enough to even know what to vote for when we go to the polls. So study laws, know what you're voting for, know how to understand the ballot, because a lot of times the language does not cater to African American students, so we don't understand the language that we're voting. You don't know, so we have to start there first. Learning, get educated, get serious about your future so that we can make a difference as a society, as a community, as an African American race, and as young people.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, that's this is power, baby. Go ahead. We're gonna see it from this side. Tell us as a young.
To Victoria's point, I want to kind of say this to the millennials. You don't have there is no consistent political power on social media. All you're doing is making comments. Politicians are not looking at it. The government does not shift when you look at a post and you comment. That is not how you make a difference and make an impact in your communities. You have to go and vote. And I think millennials, we want to have a voice, but we have voices with no power.
Jesus.
So the power is in what Victoria said. Go do your research. If you know if there are community issues, if there are racial issues, the way that we handle these issues and make change in our community is going to vote. So I want to say to our millennial culture that it is not enough to comment and like posts. That's not what makes a difference. You have to get up and go and vote. We go to clubs, we go to parties, we go to kickbacks, we do all of these things. I'm asking, along with those things, take about 30 minutes to go and vote.
Yes.
And so let me say, because I want a couple of our audience to hear, because you know when people run on and they always talk about when politicians run. I want to bring more businesses, and that's the norm that they say. I'm gonna bring more business. I'm gonna bring more jobs, and so people start liking that kind of foolishness. But that's what they all say. I don't care what city or what state you're in. That's what everybody's saying.
Common denominator.
Right.
Basically.
But
yes.
let me tell you, I was in a meeting with Mayor Hubbard, and she talked about the extension that P&G is doing. That's, I don't know how many jobs. There's a lot of jobs that's coming through that extra thing they just built. They're building. There's a lot of jobs coming through that. Now, she said to me that all over the world, P&Gs all over the world were vying for that. They packaged a deal to get P&G to build that here, which will create jobs. And so that energy efficient plant that what all the others are going to do and all the jobs, that's one thing. Then she talked about Georgia Pacific. She said that Georgia Pacific had several cities, several states that they were looking at going to for their expansion. She said, but what they did, they went in, they got the infrastructure and all of those things in place to say, listen, we shovel ready. If you need a place or you need to start today. She said, and that was how they sold it. And that's how they got Georgia Pacific to expand. And I think that's another 300, 400, 500, 700 jobs that's going to come here. And so, because people start saying, well, what are they doing? Well, because it ain't about just getting a brand new company to come. How do you get a company that's already here to when they got some expansion plans to expand? And so you got P&G is expanding. You got them.
Pacific.
Well, you got Colson Clark put a distribution center here, but she said that because that was the inner working. Well, we don't always realize that, right. And maybe we need more of those kind of conversations with people so that they can tell these are things that we're working. That there are some other places that want them. There's some other places, because one thing we do know, it was a Bob Candace. A Bob Candace left here. Right. That had been all those years, but they left here to make more money somewhere else. And so we don't take those kind of things. Those companies that expand here, like P&G, Georgia Pacific, Colson Clark, they are bringing more jobs. But the people who are running are not going to say that, because that's going to give people like Ms. Hubbard too much credit, too much kudos.
Because of her watch. On her watch, these things took place.
Now, one guy I know who didn't win, if he had got Georgia Pacific to expand, he'd be telling about if he had gotten P&G to expand and get another 500 plus jobs, or a Colson Clark, I'm telling you, he would be singing 30 years from now what he did, how he got that Colson Clark, Georgia Pacific. But that kind of person will never give Miss Hubbard kudos. And a part of what she says, that what she says as a man, she said, what I have to do is get 3 other people to work with me, and I was able to get these companies to want to expand. And so that's what I'm saying. And so, and when you look at, when you come on Clark from 300, if you remember, there was this old dilapidated Albany Housing Authority housing over by Bishop Leggett. Right. Well, all that is torn down now. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to do affordable housing there. Putting a brand new, because what they were trying to do as you come into Albany, get down, it was an eyesore.
Right.
And so when people come into Albany, and now from East Albany, coming into Albany from East Albany, you're going to see upscale housing, which makes your city look better to people who are coming for the first time. And she's saying that she is working on doing other housing to make Albany more viable to middle income, low to moderate income people. And she said, I'm working on housing. And so I say that to my brothers and sisters, because some of us who complain about water, gas, and light, some of our complaints really isn't about water, gas, and light. It's really about the houses that you're renting. They're not energy efficient.
No person really should be living
some
in these places.
Right. Some of them got old wiring. I had an electrician say to me, electrician said to me, he says, Reverend, some of these houses were built 50, 60 years ago. They were not built for the amount of appliances you got now. He said, when these houses were built, there were no electric washers and dryers. There were no dishwashers. He said there was one TV maybe.
Hello.
He said, now you got
Black
a
and
TV in
white.
every room.
Cable
He said,
hooked up to everyone.
cable.
All that's energy.
He said,
Internet.
all internet. He said that wiring in most of these houses. He said, so the wire gets hot, and the more it gets, the hotter it gets, the more energy it burns. He said because they were not built. He said you got computer, you got folk on the computer, you got people washing and drying, you got folk with great big refrigerator, freezers. He said, but 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and when you think about it, half the folk didn't even have a refrigerator.
Nope.
You
If
know,
they did, they had an ice box.
yeah.
On the back
You know,
porch.
And that was when they were doing good.
Yes.
They had a washing machine on the back, and I wash clothes on the back porch.
Yes.
But you got to put it through the ringer.
Yep.
Let me
And then put it on the line.
let me ask this on another note.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
What are we saying about isn't there a runoff with the city commission between
Ward
who?
6.
Ward 6.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Young and
Young
Hawthorne.
Young, Mr. Young and Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Hawthorne.
So we want you to not
I want you to write. Our people need to go back and pick whoever you pick. Now, I think
Right.
both of them are good men.
Yes.
I think both of them intelligent men. I
Yeah.
think both men are men of integrity.
Okay.
But I think for that minority race, we cannot afford
Right.
to give them a super PAC. Don't be 70+% of the people, and you have less than 30% of the representation.
Mm.
And at the moment, if she loses, we'll have less than 30% of the representation. They'll have almost 80% of the representation at the
That's
table
reversed.
if we lose. Now, if we do that with all that our mothers and fathers have done to fight
Oh.
to get us a chance and a voice, shame on us. Shame on us. Shame on
We
us.
just saw a number, 54 Albany State
54.
students voted.
54. Oh my
54
gosh.
out of
Jesus.
almost 4,000 kids.
Wow.
Young people. So that tells you the level of involvement in terms of, and I would render to say probably 80% of these students probably have some type of social media engaging. And some type of Instagram, some type of mainly Instagram and all those other, what's the other popular medium?
Snapchat.
Snapchat. I would render to say 80% of them have some level of
You can tell
engagement.
you, oh, you don't know all them.
Yeah.
All you know is Facebook, man.
Yeah. And Instagram.
That's our dinosaur. It's died.
Yeah, it's our age. That's ours. That's ours. You know. So I really want to encourage. I want to encourage 54 students that are disengaged. 54 students that are 54 students that were engaged. So we're not even talking about a half a percent in terms of, or two, of the overall population. So let me say this to the professors and say to this faculty and staff, you can't tell them who to vote for, but you can tell them if they have residency here.
And you can't tell them who you voted for.
And you can encourage these young people to get engaged in the process.
Well, no, like, don't tell them who to vote for. Just tell them vote and vote for y'all.
Right.
And
Hello.
we could have had even a better state if Bo had voted for him.
Hello.
Yeah.
You ain't got to tell them who to vote. Just remind them when you were not here, we could have had a better stadium. But Bo
Might have
said
been
y'all
indoor.
Y'all didn't need nothing. I would say,
But they need to hear this. They need to hear this language because another major election is coming in next year,
Right.
and we cannot wait until the last minute. This stuff is very important. But Pastor Hurd, before we move on, you talked about the majority vote,
okay,
in terms of the commission and the mayor, and jobs with P&G, which is one of the companies I love. I appreciate Procter & Gamble. It has given many thousands of people a lifestyle that they would not have had.
Hello.
and Georgia Pacific, you have given
and Georgia
major-
Pacific and
Yes.
several other companies.
Yes.
What I'd like for you to do is connect the dots to jobs and politics. See, because people will say, politicians are saying they're going to bring jobs to a community, and I think sometimes our listeners need to get a revelation of why it's so important for you to who you elect, and once you elect a particular person, he or she is a voice for whatever your agenda or your concerns are. If, let's say, for us, we jobs, education, youth, companies are very important. Why is that important to me? Well, most people may say, well, Dorothy Hubbard was involved in are partially involved with these companies expanding and maybe some negotiation. Because what a lot of times our community don't understand, that months before,
Right.
sometimes years before things happen, people are in meetings, negotiating, talking about how many jobs are you bringing. Watch this. Some people are even fighting. If you got 500 jobs, how many can be guaranteed to minorities?
Yeah.
These are the arguments that are taking place. And so if you've got a politician that's on a city or county commission, depending on what the issue is, who doesn't care about the black community, he or she starts voting in a way where you've got people negotiating, because we've got to have people at the table who care about our people,
Absolutely.
who will argue and say, listen, we do need some guarantees on the table.
Right.
Now, what the city is guaranteeing in a lot of cases is we'll give a company a tax break. We'll do these kind of things.
Yes.
But we've got to have people who vote
Certainly.
in on behalf of our community.
Let me say this. One of the things we got to look at when people are running, one of the things I think we don't do, we don't ask them, what is your involvement in the community now?
What have you done?
What have you done as a servant?
Hello.
To ask Bo, well, what have you done,
Since being in office.
You're talking about why you did this back then. What have you done since then that would make you a vital candidate?
Right.
In terms of, tell us some community service and something you've been doing to make this community great.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think that we have to look at with candidates. If you didn't do nothing and just decide you're gonna run, but you have no service record,
Right.
nobody can account for you.
That's
Nobody could stand up for your involvement in the community.
Right.
Then I think you that's hypocrisy.
I am scared of any man put him over the business
Right.
who can't grow his own business. And Bo said to me, here you are, Reverend, making all this money, and here I'm a struggling lawyer.
Right.
Well, if you was a better lawyer, you wouldn't have that problem. Don't get mad because I'm a better preacher than you are a lawyer.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, but listen, and so I'm saying, listen, and so I'll make no bones about it. If he had been a better lawyer as I was a better preacher, he'd have been making more money.
So what you saying?
So,
if a guy can't grow a youth ministry, he don't need to be a pastor.
no.
What you saying?
Can't grow
I thought I heard you say
Exactly what I said.
Hey, hold on.
If you can't grow a youth ministry, ain't even putting you the whole church.
Wait, hold up. Okay.
They're going wild on this thing.
Let's calm down.
That's what I said.
No.
That's what I said.
Let me be fair about something. We have both of your kids from Atlanta.
Yes.
All of them Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so we want to interview them a little bit about you.
Yeah,
I want to ask them about growing up as Bishop Bowers' children and how do they feel about sharing you with thousands of others that they get jealous and what was your involvement in their education?
Were you in the midst able to balance it with all that you did in ministry?
Yes.
Were you able to still give them time? Because there's some pastor who hadn't found balance, who maybe does well with the ministry and church, but he doesn't do well with family, or he does well with wife and family, or children and family, mom and dad and family, but he didn't do well with ministry.
Right.
But I would like to, because there may be some preacher who hear me, now listen, I ain't talked to them, so I don't know what they got to say.
Right.
So if y'all hear me sit here like my old church say, like, Lord have mercy, y'all know this ain't going quite the way we was hoping. So, Pastor Victoria, tell me, what was it like growing up with Bishop Victor L. Powell as your father, as your dad?
That's my father.
And I see that love you when you look at him too.
I see it.
I love my father. I will say I never felt like I really had to share him. Like I have so many memories that I can recount. I remember, I think I may have been 11 or 12. I went on my first picnic. I mean, like he laid the foundation of what a man should be like in my life. I mean, flowers. I mean, even just now, was it this year? So 2019, Valentine's Day. He traveled to Atlanta, bought me a car. What? Happy Valentine's Day. I'm fully grown.
32.
Do I hear hate? Do I hear hate?
And doing well and a college grad and all that stuff.
All that stuff. And
Got her own money.
It's crazy because I have a friend, he says, your dad is your husband. You're not going to need one. And I'm like, no.
Now, you can't come up to his step.
Hello? Step your game up.
Exactly. So and then school. I mean, he stayed on us about school. He was the head of the PTO or the PTO at the time. He was in the classroom. He came up to school, and one time I think I was in high school, and we were talking. I and the principal at the time, and I guess I didn't show enough confidence, and he was like, "Hold your head up, stick your chest out." And he had this thing where you can hang around with people that was walking the street. I mean, he was, if I could say anything, he was the most involved. I did.
Some hate.
My brother, he has a bit of a more rebellious.
She told you under the bus.
I was the compliant child.
What?
My dad was an amazing father, and yes, we gleaned so much from him as a pastor, and as a bishop, and as our spiritual father. But what he instilled in us as far as life skills, how to maneuver, what to do, he was very, very, very present. So I don't feel as if I had to share him.
Well, we won't ask you, but I mean, I won't ask you your age, but I won't ask you your age, but you still love him like that? You still have a love for him like that after all this time?
After all this time.
Wow. Okay, we're going to go on because she done throw you under the bus.
Pastor Gabriel, talk to us.
Yeah, Pastor Gabriel.
Yes, I never really realized that we were sharing him. It was it's a world that we grew up in, and I think we understood it. It was a part of our world. And here's why I realized we didn't. I realized that we didn't realize we were sharing him because he mastered both ministry and family. And when I say master, I'm not talking about perfection. I'm saying he was present. Now, Dad didn't take me on no picnic, and I'm good. Boy, I need no picnic. But I remember playing catch. I remember that because he threw it a little too hard, hit me right in the head with that baseball, and I think that was the last time he picked up a baseball with me. But we played basketball. I mean, Dad is a movie buff, so he loved taking me to the movies. And going a little bit more in depth, I'll never forget, I even say this from my pulpit. My dad would say this before we would leave as teenagers: think for yourself, remember who you are. Think for yourself, remember who you are. Think for yourself, remember who you are. So what my sister is talking about in terms of that nature that I have, he taught us to think for ourselves. So we didn't go places, and Dad would say, "You don't follow the crowd." That was the language in our house. I would hear Dad praying.
Wow. Jesus.
So I'm conscious of prayer because I heard prayer in my house. But after prayer, he'll jack you up and say, "Now we ain't gangsters over here."
Oh wow.
You got two options. You can stay here and be a son, or you got to go live with your mom and them family that do the ABC and D. And so that's why my sister and I. Now you got to understand, I grew up in a neighborhood with all of my friends. I don't know any friend that comes to mind that does not have a felony.
Jesus.
I am the only person that grew up in my neighborhood that I was close to that does not have a family or a felony. I also went to law enforcement. My father was in corrections. I'm a street cop. Then I went into ministry. So, and my sister and I, we are both college graduates. That's not because we grew up in church. That's because when Dad came home, He told us who we were and who we were not going to be.
Because you recently got another degree or something.
He's a master's degree.
Master's.
Wow,
Yes, sir.
wow.
And I think you have, lady, Victoria, you have a master's.
Yes, sir.
Right. And so to have children,
Yes.
a son and daughter, both with a master's, says a lot about
Yes.
somebody had to be somebody's had to be steering and guiding.
I want to ask him one more question because, you know, as a pastor and in ministry, and I know that you have your own ministry. It's you are the real pastor. You are a real pastor and so forth. But what does it mean to have him as your father, your spiritual father, your mentor, and is he your hero? And to give you a sense of security. I know you got God, but knowing that, you know, He have your back.
Yes, sir. We were talking yesterday in a meeting, and one of the things that we concluded was it's almost as if Bishop is in our church. It's almost as if Bishop is in our church because everybody kind of agreed. They said, you can't, Pastor Gabe is not going to make any type of reference or statement without referencing his father. So the ministry is what it is in Atlanta, and is what it is going to continue to be, not because I'm talented, but because I have Bishop who's about to celebrate 30 years of ministry. I have Reverend Merritt's impartation through Bishop. Then I have Bishop Earl Parks. So I don't come from just I didn't just start a church. I'm operating out of legacy and impartation. So the success of my ministry is not because I'm gifted and talented. It is because I'm a son. I'm connected to something. And I really would love to encourage pastors that if you don't have a pastor, I'm not talking about from a control perspective. My dad doesn't come to my church and control. He very seldomly even says, don't do this. That's not what it is. It's just impartation. I'm successful because of impartation. I would really encourage young pastors and ministers, or whatever you do, Levitical, any of the Levitical roles in ministry. If you are a business person, whatever it is, I would really encourage you to connect to a spiritual leader. I promise you, the success that you will have out of that connection, you won't even be able to fathom it. I believe that our success is in our connection.
Well, you have television ministry and everything today. And I'm saying to you, you're saying to us that Bishop Victor Powell is still your hero?
Oh, absolutely. He's not just my spiritual father, but I don't have a rapper or a businessman. I love Tyler Perry.
Right.
Tyler Perry is amazing, but Tyler Perry did not come and get me out of trouble.
What?
I know he has his own highway in his own studio, but when I tell you, my father has rescued me time and time again. Yeah.
Wow. We're very proud of who you all are.
Yes.
And I think it's a blessing to not be a first generational believer. From someone who's connected to someone who's connected to someone who have a history of talking with God and a history of loving God. And I think many young people are not nearly as fortunate or as blessed as you to even be able to say that I heard my daddy pray. Where now there's people who can teach prayer, teach about prayer, talk about prayer, and preach about prayer, and sing about prayer, but they aren't doing it. And so to have that kind of rich heritage and legacy means that he didn't just do it at the church, he brought it home. And so, yeah.
For me, you know, and I want to say this real quick, it's not your mother's birthday, but we know she is a prayer woman too, but it's Bishop's birthday, so I want to regularly play it. But this is what I want to say, that to have a father who pray and who love you, where you feel secure, where you feel protected, where you feel that you can make your request known, is really the first thing that teach you to pray. Because so if you learn that God is that He's in Christ's image. See, we look at the wrong thing, that you're secure as a daughter and as a son. Even now, I can tell you, we both know ain't nothing can happen in Atlanta that makes Atlanta too far to get to you, and you can't. I can't think, and I nobody wants you to get into, but I can't think of nothing you can get in and go through that will make him jump out and not support. So you know you have no excuse, and I'm saying that in a good way, because if you know your father, you look at him and you pray to God like your relationship is with Bishop Dick Dale Powell, and that's just a blessing to be able to say that. And so I hope you young people out there who
because at 56 years old, I'm not near as old as Bishop Powell.
No, you're not. So y'all keep on, Miss.
It is my hope, it is my prayer that I can be half the man that my dad is, my godfather.
Jesus.
Half the man that one of my spiritual fathers, Pastor Roosevelt Carter, is.
Yes.
And that I wish I could be half the man that my pastor, Reverend Dr. A.C. Wilson, who has pastored me most of my life, that if I could be half the man either of those men are, if I could have half the faith either of those men have, Jesus.
Oh man.
I think I'll do all right if I could just get half of it. Yes,
well, if I get a piece of being J.D. Bolden, I would. And I was doing a funeral a couple of weeks ago at your church, a young man who got killed and so forth. But I was going through and for the repast, and I heard somebody say, "Them Bubba Sneed children," was pointing at me and my sister.
Wow.
Those are Bubba Sneed children. Now, and I hadn't heard anybody say Bubba Sneed in so long, but I said, that's right. That's who my daddy is. And so God, God bless. Anything you don't want to say to close this matter, we got to. Yes.
Happy birthday, Dad.
All right.
Bless y'all. Bless y'all.
Thank y'all.
Oh, man.
Thank y'all so
Senior
much. Senior citizen.
Man.
I'm going to get my senior citizen discount. I'm going to get mine.
Listen, shout out to Austin State Prison.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Lee State
State.
Prison.
Doherty County Prison.
Yes.
To all those brothers and sisters that are locked up, we bless you. We pray for you.
Y'all stay strong, man. Stay strong.
We love you, Albany, Georgia.
I hope y'all have a safe trip back to Atlanta.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving to
Happy
all.
Thanksgiving.
Be safe, eat,
Yes.
and don't get into arguments with family members.
Enjoy your family.
Enjoy your family. Have a great time.
Don't eat too much though. Okay.
Lose some weight over
Cook that
Thanksgiving.
macaroni and cheese right
And
now.
remember, say
Amen.
no to both.
They know the ball.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.